All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Millennials World podcast. And you know what, Brian? I've been thinking, right? Of course, we've been talking and waxing very poetically recently about our just amazing society in the year 2025. We have no political strife. We're as united as a nation as you can possibly fucking get. And you know what I think would even go better with that, Brian, is the power of rock and roll, friendship, and martial arts. Would you agree with that, Brian?
Well, yeah, I would say that those are the three foundations of American society, our American democracy, our Constitution, which of course we all uphold and which keeps us safe. Really, if you take rock and roll and martial arts together, I think the founding fathers would agree that that is basically the perfect ingredients for a Western democracy that'll live forever.
Exactly. And talking about ingredients, Brian, I think all those things we described are also in direct conflict with cocaine and bikers and ninjas. Would you agree with that?
And just rude guys who are rude to their sisters, guys who don't respect friendship, all of those things. And yeah, cocaine is a thing that'll do all of that to you. It'll make you grow a really full beard that kind of looks like it's glued on. Don't do cocaine.
Exactly. And speaking of all those things that are relevant to a piece of media, this week I want to review the legendary So Bad It's Good movie, Miami Connection. But before we get into our review this week, Brian, let's bring back our segment, Cringe Generational Cringe Millennial Moment of the
Cringe?
Week.
Generational moment? Whoa, whoa.
Woo! Yeah! All right. And I know quite a few episodes ago at this point, I think it was maybe even last year, you did a segment on how you were a particularly cringe millennial on the Northern Irish punk band. Which one was that?
Yeah, was that on the Stiff Little Fingers episode?
Yep. And how you totally miss seeing them, even though you had tickets to them.
Yep, that was SLF. Yep. The one time that I was ever a cringe millennial.
Exactly. So for this week, I will be the cringe millennial because you know what, Brian? I was extremely cringe last night in the fact that when I was driving home from seeing my girlfriend, I hit a fucking deer with my car.
No!
So cringy.
But that's like a rite of passage where you're from.
Yeah, you'd fucking think so. I mean, I'm literally 32 years old. I've been driving at this point literally my half my life, and I finally hit a deer on the highway.
Do you feel proud about it? Do you feel like you could cross that off the list?
Oh, you better believe it, especially after, it being 9 o'clock on a Sunday. There's nothing more. I was like, fuck yes. I have body damage to my fucking vehicle. Fuck yeah. I'm gonna guess that the deer probably died. I don't know that, but I did hit a deer's ass at 70 miles an hour, which I'm assuming that means it's probably dead.
You did not pack it up in your vehicle RFK Jr. style so that you could use the meat instead of letting it go to waste.
I did think about that, Brian, but I think that would very much impede on my vegetarian lifestyle. Just maybe. Just possibly.
Prior to your vegetarianism, did you ever eat venison? Growing up, we both grew up in northeastern Wisconsin. Were you from a venison household at all?
Oh, yeah. No, we definitely ate venison. My dad's side of the family were very avid hunters. There was a picture that was in their hunting shack because they grew up and lived even way further up north than, even fucking we did.
Oh, yeah. All right.
And the picture in their cabin was literally a fucking giant hill of dead deer. It was nuts.
Awesome. Very cool. You love to see it. Yeah, I don't know. We did venison in my household because my stepdad was a big hunter. And I can get down with venison steak occasionally. Venison burgers are kind of a big thing, in the town I grew up in. They're awful. Maybe they taste better if it's a deer you've hit with your car.
Maybe it's probably those just fear particles in the brain just before it dies, maybe.
Yeah. That whatever impulse drives them to just freeze right in front of your car.
The particles of microplastics from the wrecked body of your car and the glass of it too.
That's the special ingredient in everything I eat these days. Unleashes the X factor in my millennial brain.
Exactly. So, and the other cringe part was I decided to put a, claim with my insurance, and they told me that it could cost up to $2,000. And I said, fuck that. So I decided to just go to the local fucking auto shop and just buy $11 worth of epoxy and just put it on the spots where it was busted. And I'm like, that's the end of that. I'm never thinking about it again.
Boy, an insurance provider fucked you over? Imagine that. That's crazy.
Yeah. There's not a single individual I can think of who took revenge on an insurance company recently that I think we've ever stand, Brian. And to be fair, they didn't even do it, but still, I don't think there's a single person like that.
Well, I certainly don't expect that to happen a lot more often in this country in the near future. That's for sure.
No, exactly. But you know what? Speaking of committing unreasonable acts of violence and as well wholesome violence, I think it leads perfectly into our review this week. Would you agree with that, Brian?
Yeah. I don't know if we've actually talked about doing this movie before, but it's going to be a good show for us because we've been doing a lot of, I think, heavier material, right? Any listeners that have not seen Miami Connection, truly, and I don't usually say this, I like to think our show is able to make sense and be entertaining if you listen to it without having to necessarily see the thing we're talking about. But if you have not seen Miami Connection, like you should go watch it right now. It's on YouTube.
No, I couldn't fucking possibly agree more. So yeah, once again, this is Miami Connection. It came out in 1987. And the first trivia fact I have here, and this is very obvious when you actually watch the movie because they say it multiple times, even though it's called Miami Connection, it takes place in Orlando.
Yeah, I caught that last night too. I don't know if I ever really, I must not have noticed that in the past when I had watched this, but last night I was like, huh, what the fuck? And of course, I guess Miami Connection does roll off the tongue and it reminds you of Miami Vice, but pretty glaring oversight.
No, I think so too. And also, like, yeah, there's so many mentions of it. There's Central, like, Florida University. You know, they filmed several scenes in, like, prominent parts of Orlando. Like, I think they mention it specifically. Like, there's, like, Orlando's hottest nightclub. Like,
Yeah,
it
they
clearly
do.
takes place in Orlando. It's awesome. And this movie is rated R. Would you believe it, Brian? There's only nudity and massive amounts of violence in it.
Here's the thing. I forgot about the nudity until I rewatched it last night. And it's like, why is there any nudity in this movie? This is such a goofy, like, pretty much kid-friendly movie, even with the violence. It's like, why are there titties in this? What was he thinking? There's nothing offensive about the way the titties are portrayed. It's just not that type of movie.
Well, here's the thing, Brian, is that, and I think it's later on in the trivia, so I'm just going to say it right now, but all the bikers in this movie are like actual bikers. They found actual outlaw bikers to be the biker characters in this movie. So they're just like, ah, fuck it. We're just going to be degenerates. That's the answer.
Yeah, all right. I mean, that does explain some of the performance choices.
There's so many scenes, especially there's like three guys who are like the fucking stooges. And there's literally just like the director of this movie, who once again is YK Kim, which we'll certainly get into YK Kim in a moment. But they clearly like told them to just be like, oh yeah, riff. And they're like, I don't know how to riff. So they just like start doing
Yeah.
like weird moves out of nowhere, not even saying sentences. It's awesome.
And that's one of the things, that's an early illustration of one of the things you'll notice with this movie. It does not equal the sum of its parts. Because there's a lot of people in this film, it's pretty clear, who did have some level of competency in some very specialized film or some very specialized role. But boy, something about the way this movie was made, what ultimately comes together is a series of choices.
Yes, a series of choices that are hilarious and really just don't make any sense, but it's awesome. Like, I want to be
It
clear, to
rules.
me, this is like a top five so bad it's good movie. Like, this is up there
No,
with like The Room and Troll 2.
absolutely. So the thing is, I try to avoid the phrase so bad it's good because it gets overused a lot. But there's a type of movie that people will just call so bad it's good when really it's just bad. Or maybe it's like so absurd. But this is like a peak example of that. The same way that, like you said, The Room or Troll 2 are. Everything about this movie is so wrong. It's not just that it's bad. It's not that it's stupid. It's not that it's weird. It is all of those things. And it is at points kind of seems, incompetent or borderline incompetent, but it's the thorough wrongness of it. That nothing that happens makes sense. The direction choices, the performance choices, the like costume choices. It all feels just a little bit wrong at every moment.
It's a very uncanny valley movie, to be honest with you. Like, this is a movie that, like, if you tweaked it to make it even 10% more competent, this totally could have been, like, a high-grossing movie in the 80s. But it's
Yeah,
just 10
yeah.
to 20% too incompetent to do that at every point. It's awesome.
It's very Tim and Eric vibes when you watch it now.
Yes, that's a really good way to put it. And, I mentioned YK Kim, so he is the director, the storyboard artist, he was the producer.
Storyboards?
Yes, he, with
awesome.
another person, Richard Park, and the screenplay was by a gentleman by the name of Joseph Diamond. And YK Kim, real quick, Brian, so I don't know if you did any research on YK Kim, but he is like a Tommy Wiseau level fascinating figure, except we actually know where he's from. Like, that's the kind of person YK Kim is. Like, almost to a T.
A true Renaissance man. Like,
He's not
in a way
true
that you kind of
for this
don't,
movie.
yeah, in a way that you kind of don't get anymore.
No, absolutely. So, YK Kim, he was originally from South Korea. He grew up there. At one point, he was the youngest person in Korean history to get a black belt in Taekwondo. He got it at the age of 13 years old. He, in his young adulthood, moved to Orlando, Florida. He ran a very large, not very large, a very successful series of Taekwondo gyms in the Orlando area, became a multimillionaire. He had a magazine and stuff like that. And he said to himself, I want to teach the future of this country and the world, proper values and manners and, fucking resolving peace through martial arts and stuff. So he made this
The
movie.
fundamentals. Yeah.
He made this movie essentially as I am going to spread my message out here in a way that's entertaining to the masses. And it got released in Orlando and the surrounding area for about 2 weeks. It ate shit financially. Critics hated it. And it basically got shelved forever until Alamo Drafthouse found a print of it on eBay for $50.
I remember, I think in 2013 or something, you telling me the story, and I was blown away by the fact that that was true. First of all, just awesome. That YK Kim, this guy who clearly has some lifeblood and has done some things, in his time, but kind of had no business making a movie, right? It was I need to make a movie speaking to the feelings of the young people in America and the problems they're facing and giving them hope, which why? But then that the movie was even made, because when you watch this movie, it is incredible. It is incredible that this exists, the same way that it's incredible Troll 2 exists. But then that it was lost and rediscovered, because I feel pretty confident saying that a film like this, that played for 2 weeks, that, got laughed out of the box office, when it's lost, who knows how many films, on that level have been lost, and they're gone forever. Just the idea that it was found is kind of incredible.
No, it is, absolutely. And the film print that the guy from Alamo Drafthouse had wasn't even the original film print, because the original film print was destroyed in a hurricane a decade prior to that.
So it really is a miracle that print existed.
No, absolutely, 100%. And the movie's about 86 minutes long. It had a budget of about $1 million in 1987, which was some real motherfucking money back then. And once again, it grossed basically nothing. And on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 68% critic score and a 64% audience score. Of course, those are all contemporaneous reviews. None of those are reviews from the time, because once again, basically nobody saw this movie at the time.
Well, and it's crazy to think of this movie at the time, because one thing that I can't, let's flip past out this, came out in 87, right? It doesn't look like it. It looks way more like 82, 83. Something about it is just a little bit too late to the party on all of the fashion, on all of the sounds. 87 is remarkably late for this movie to be made.
No, I agree with that. I would even maybe put it in 1985 at the very latest.
Very latest.
Very, very latest. I think that's when Miami Vice came out, wasn't it?
Yes. It's 2 years after Scarface, which is, I think, another pretty notable influence, in a shallow way on this film. Big Miami Vice vibes, big Scarface vibes. Of course, there's Taekwondo.
Yes, exactly. And we will certainly get into Taekwondo in this movie, because even though it is functionally competent and good Taekwondo, but the staging of it is hilarious in the movie, because it's clear it was all completely choreographed. It's the most obvious thing in the world at various scenes. It's so funny. It's a showcase of Taekwondo in this movie.
Yes.
It's awesome.
It's because the real issue, of course, is that YK Kim, and seemingly it looks like other members of the cast and crew, were pretty skilled at actually performing Taekwondo, at actually doing, the aerobic side of it. But I think that's easy. Let's say you're a YK Kim and you're I know Taekwondo, I can, make a movie about it, but it's not enough to know how to do it, right? You need to be able to edit, and you need to be able to select footage. And yeah, like you said, it is just a showcase. It is just the actors walking up to the camera and doing Taekwondo moves. And we're supposed to be oh, that's a cool fight that's happening. Very bizarre.
It is very fucking bizarre. So the movie begins with a cocaine deal in Miami is interrupted by a group of motorcycle riding ninjas. It's so awesome. The movie begins with fucking cocaine dealing bikers and ninjas. It's so cool. It's like a 7-year-old's idea of an action movie.
Yeah, exactly. And it's right off the bat, cocaine biker ninjas. You know exactly what this movie is right out the gate. And you would think can't top that. It can't get more insane than that. It absolutely does not let up the throttle. Also, during the drug deal, they're saying do you have the cocaine? Yeah, I've got the cocaine. When you put it in your nose, it'll get you really high.
There's some other lines, I can't remember his name, but that guy's name and his stupid cocaine. It's so awesome.
Oh, yeah. That stupid cocaine.
Yeah. If you don't do this, you're a chicken. Well, if I'm a chicken, then you're a turkey. It's like that level of shit in
We
this
used to say
movie.
it, yeah.
This movie's like an R-rated, like dare-coded movie.
I mean, it
It's
is.
awesome.
That's part of the thing with me being like uncomfortable with there being titties in it. Is just like this is a movie. The violence is, at times somewhat graphic, but it's also very silly. And this is America. That's violence. That's not sex. The titties in it, it's kind of like because if there were no titties in it, I would think it was a movie for like 10-year-olds.
It really does feel like that. And then to be fair, there's like characters who get like fucking decapitated and like their faces
The,
and like their
the,
arms
the,
cut off and stuff.
yeah, okay. Point taken.
But it is like there's like 90% of this movie could easily be made for 10-year-olds, and the other 10% is like clearly R-rated. It's very bizarre.
Because, yeah, there's nudity, there's graphic violence, there's also a martial arts rock band that all live together and they sing songs about their friendship.
And who are orphans from
Yeah,
all
for
across the
orphans.
world.
Yeah, it's very clear that YK Kim was like, orphans are going to see this and be inspired by it. They're going to know that they can do anything too.
Yeah. But the cocaine dealing motorcycle ninjas are led by Yashido, played by the actor. Well, not even the actor. I'm just going to assume fucking martial artist. Si Young Jo, who steal the drugs and ride back to Orlando. At a club, Yashido's close associate Jeff, played by William Urgel, who I've said for years looks like a combination of fucking Billy Mays and Chuck Norris. Like literally to a T. If they did the fusion dance from Dragon Ball Z, he'd look exactly like this motherfucker.
His beard is like so pristine that I kind of think it's fake.
It
It's
has
like
to be,
truly
like, especially the
it's too
bottom
good.
part of it, it looks glued on. It looks fucking glued
Yeah.
on.
Favorite thing about this character is that he has some weird kind of Tony Montana incest stuff with his sister going on, right? But in Scarface, that's supposed to be weird. It's like a weird trait of Tony's. Here, it's just kind of taken as a given that brothers get weirdly jealous about their sisters, right?
Yeah, it's very odd. But yeah, talking about the Sister Jane by Kathy Collier. And they perform with the band Dragon Sound, who is made up with the 5 members of the Taekwondo rock band playing orphans who all go to college and live together and are from all around the world. It's so cool. It's so wholesome. And by the way, even though this came out in 1987, this is so 90s coded. Like, you talk about how it's like antiquated, but it's also kind of ahead of its time in a way because that's so 90s coded.
Well, I forgot until watching it last night. I was like, oh yeah, they go to college too. How do they all have time to do all of this? Also, how old is YK Kim compared to the rest of his crew?
I think if I'm not mistaken, let me just look this up real quick because the age gap is pretty goddamn massive. So YK Kim, he would be, oh my God, he would be in his 40s.
Yeah, which I guess you can go back to school at any age, but like, what was he studying?
Yeah, exactly, right? Oh my God. But the sister, has become romantically involved with John, played by Vincent Hirsch, who I am going to call fucking Michael Phelps throughout this movie because he looks exactly like Michael Phelps. That was the first person I remember looking at it, and I'm like, damn, that's Michael Phelps to the core. But he's the bassist.
He's like the pretty boy of the movie.
Yeah, kind of. He's the bassist of Dragon Sound, which consists of, once again, as we keep mentioning, an ethnically diverse group of 5 college students who are best friends. They live, train Taekwondo, and attend the University of Central Florida all together.
They do everything together.
They're also all orphans, once again. It's so beautiful. Like, it's honestly, and that's the thing, like, a lot of people, like, would make a movie these days and make this and be, like, totally fucking cynical, but there's no sense of cynicism in this movie at all. There's no hint of irony or cynicism or hatred at all.
That's the thing. YK Kim truly believed in this. Like, he didn't have to make this. I want to reiterate, and I didn't do a ton of research, but I read a little about YK Kim. He doesn't seem like he had to make this movie.
No, he was like a multi-millionaire. Like his net worth was probably in the 8 figures when he made this movie, to be honest with you.
He did not have to make this movie. He did not have to take such an active role in the film. He was like, I'm going to speak to the people, to the young people. They need it. They need this. Like, obviously there's something maybe kind of egocentric about that, but it's kind of hard to hate when the end result is this movie, which is so fun and just so, like, it is extremely likable.
It is. It is extremely fucking likable. There's a reason I've watched this movie probably 10 to 12 times in my life because it's just so likable. It's so enjoyable.
It's so fun, man.
It really fucking is. Jeff disapproves of his sister's relationship with John and confronts him at school, but Mark, once again played by YK Kim, rhythm guitarist of Dragon Sound, the band's Taekwondo instructor and father figure to the other band members, stands up to him. And this scene's great because he just pulls up to the school and fucking Michael Phelps guy comes up to him and be like, hey, nice to meet you. And the sister says oh yeah, this is my boyfriend. Or no, it's a friend.
Boyfriend?
And then he goes, he goes, a friend! He says it just like that, a friend.
That's right.
It's awesome. Like, his acting is honestly just as bad as YK Kim's. Like, I mean, everybody's pretty bad in this movie, but he is like really bad.
The difference is that YK Kim is clearly not an actor, whereas he is, and there's a couple other cases of this too. There's the people like YK Kim and some of the villains who are like not actors, right? And then there's the people on the other end of the spectrum who very much clearly are quote unquote acting and they're really going for it. And that I would say is, I mean, they're all great performances. I got nothing bad to say about anyone in this fucking film.
And the other connection with, Tommy Wiseau and YK Kim is that their grasp on English is very tenuous. I'll just say that. Because, there's obviously many quotes that everybody has in this movie, including YK Kim. But I am not going to do his impersonation because I'm not going to get canceled. But his grasp of English is, I'm just going to say, very terrible. That's all I'm going to say. It's all I'm going to say. I'm going to leave it at that.
Well, Taylor, that's why he had to make this film. Because he knew what he wanted to say to the world. And he needed to communicate it through the raw emotion of Taekwondo, stunts, and the music of Dragon Sound.
No, exactly. Later on, another band confronts the owner of the club hiring Dragon Sound, and there's like an awesome fight. It's like a minute and a half, and the guy's like, how dare you hire fucking Dragon Sound? That music's like bullshit for kids. And the other guy's like, you play music for old people.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I watch this and I'm like, yeah, take that, old guy. You don't understand our generation.
And the club promoter once again does taekwondo and beats up this other bearded guy. And I love when he leaves in a huff and he like slaps him with his jacket. He's like, I'm gonna kill your ass. It's so funny.
Yeah.
It's so good.
He's like having a hissy fit about it.
By the way, fun fact, the guy who played the fucking like angry bearded guy in this scene is a real life federal prosecutor.
Your tax dollars at work.
Yeah. That is the most respected federal prosecutor in Central Florida, by far. He's the least unhinged, hot-headed federal prosecutor in Central Florida. He's the least cocained up.
What kind of music do you think that character makes? Like, I was trying to figure this out last night. What's your guess? Like jazz?
I'm gonna guess I was gonna guess like Motown sound, but for white people. That's my guess.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking maybe he does like smooth jazz or something. But yeah, it could be like blue-eyed soul. Yeah, that makes sense.
God, that is such a funny fucking ass scene. But then, yeah, there's some other scenes, and once again, the guy who gets beat up in the club by the other guy, they once again fight the Taekwondo band. And that scene's also fun because apparently, and I learned this one doing research too, is that because YK Kim was like such a prominent member of the Orlando like community, that they just let him shoot all these scenes without a permit.
Awesome.
So like they went to these like pretty like historical and fairly busy parts of Orlando. Granted at night, don't get me wrong, but they're just like beating people up in the middle of Orlando and like fucking Taekwondo shit.
King of Florida.
God damn it. And there's some other fight scenes. There's one at a train depot. And like, I remember watching this scene because that's also a really good fucking fight scene. I mean, honestly, even though the fight scenes in this movie, once again, we talked about how it's more choreographed than actual like good action, but like they're fairly tense action scenes at the same time. It's very strange how they're able to do that shit.
There's a couple of pretty cool fight scenes in this movie. Part of that is just like, obviously, YK Kim and some of the other performers are pretty skilled at Taekwondo. So that's always going to be cool to watch, right? Even if it's the choreography is like very obvious or it's not like edited the way like a Bruce Lee or Jackie Chan film would be, it's still pretty exciting to watch. The other thing is there are actually a couple of moments, I would say this one, and then there's another fight scene at the end that are surprisingly, I don't know what it is, because I don't necessarily think they're done with any more like skill than the other fight scenes, but I think just there's so much, like the performers, particularly YK Kim, are putting so much in it that like it's hard not to find it a little exciting.
No, absolutely. And, the train depot one's another good one, and we'll certainly get into the other ones later. But yeah, there's definitely some genuinely pretty solid action scenes in this movie, even if it is a little too, like, over choreographed. But I love the ending of the train depot fight scene because, like, there's, like, cops who just, like, come on the scene. And, like, I joked for years that, like, this was so guerrilla that they, like, called the cops and they just filmed them, like, driving up to the train depot telling them there was a fight. But I think I read somewhere that, like, there's actually some evidence that might be true.
This is the best kind of movie to make. If you're a guy like YK Kim that just has enough money and enough charisma to do whatever you want.
And just be able to fucking get away with it.
Yeah, just be so likable and have enough money to be like, oh, sorry, officer.
So after a bunch of fight scenes where the bikers and cocaine dealing ninjas get their ass kicked by Dragon Sound, Jeff tries again by kidnapping Tom, played by Angelo Giannotti. Now, he is the lead guitarist of Dragon Sound, and fun fact, he is the only member of the band who actually knows how to play an instrument in real life. Like, I think I sent you some videos of him playing guitar. Did you listen to any of those?
I did.
He's actually a genuinely pretty fucking good guitarist, in all honesty.
No, and the thing is, I thought that when I was watching the film last night, too, I was like, oh, I think he's actually moving his hands. Not that what he was playing during filming is what you hear on the soundtrack. But I was like, oh, he is moving his hands in a way the rest of the performers aren't. And of course, this guy plays guitar and is pretty good at it. Look at him.
Yeah, I mean, he looks like fucking John Oates from Hall & Oates.
He
That's the other
does.
way I know who he is. So I'm gonna call him John Oates throughout the rest of the movie whenever it comes up.
He really looks a lot like John Oates, you guys.
It is like when we make fun of like, yeah, the Chuck Mays and fucking Michael Phelps and John Oates, like we're not joking. They look exactly like them. It is like
Yeah,
uncanny.
they all look like them in those cases, but especially John Oates looks like John Oates. If you saw this movie in passing, you'd be like, was John Oates in an action movie?
So, anyways, they stage a, attack on, Jeff's gang or whatever, the fucking Chuck Mays guy. They eventually get the better of him. They kill Jeff. And that's also a really solid fight scene between, YK Kim and fucking Chuck Mays. Like, genuinely speaking, like, those guys are like, even though it is clearly choreographed, but there's a little bit more, like, edge and grunge to it than some of the other fights in it. I think it's pretty solid.
There's a little bit of, I was thinking about this last night, I think in that fight, and the other good fights in the movie, but there's a little more push-pull. Of course, you do have to suspend your disbelief a little more than you would with, say, like a Jackie Chan film or something. But there is a good balance of like counter moves and I guess like tension. It works, especially compared to the rest of this movie, which is so insane and so goofy. The fight scenes, when it does work, it really stands out. It's actually a little jarring, which actually goes for the kind of extreme violence overall. Because again, the movie is so light, the movie is so wholesome that during the fight scenes and during the violence, you're kind of like, oh,
it's actually more unnerving than a lot of slasher movies because you're like, oh my God, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, we watch a guy get his face chopped off.
There's one guy with his arm chopped off, and I love that. That one's at the very beginning of the movie, but I love it. And he's like clearly trying to like act like he's in pain, but he's just shaking his head, going, "Ah!" It's awesome. It's so good.
It's such a great start to the movie.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the keyboardist of the band, Jim, played by Maurice Smith, and the next true fact I had here is that Maurice Smith never acted professionally again after this movie, which is clearly true because even though, like, once again, nobody's performance in this is like sterling Oscar performance, but you could tell he is trying harder than everybody else, especially in his emotional scenes, because even though, once again, they're all orphans, he's the only one that he knows for a fact that his, like, family exists. So he's searching for his long-lost father. He gets a letter in the mail, and the emotional scene where he's crying, telling his life story is like, it's so wholesome, but it's really funny. I'm not gonna lie. This
is my favorite scene of the movie. Oscar performance. I love this guy. I love this scene. This is the emotional heart of the film. This is the core of the movie.
No, absolutely. Yeah. It's genuinely fucking beautiful. It's so good.
It's so perfect.
And then, the movie keeps going along, but eventually he gets a letter back from his father and he opens up the mailbox. He's like, hey guys, I found my father. Oh my God. And he does it just like that. It's so
Is his voice like pitched up to make it sound more childlike? Like how Alfred Hitchcock pitched up Anthony Perkins' voice in Psycho?
I love it too, where they're just like, all right, we need to get like a suit to like go to the airport. It's like, first off, why do you need to wear a suit to go to the airport to pick up your like deadbeat dad? I don't know why you would need to do that. Why do you need to do that? It doesn't make any sense.
And the suit is like, okay. It's not like an Italian suit,
Yeah, it didn't cost. I think it was like $300. I think it cost $300 back then because that was a lot of money. That'd be like $1,000. That's definitely not $1,000 suit. I'm gonna be honest with you.
You got to impress your deadbeat dad who ran out on you.
And I also love it too. It's like, yeah, let's go meet Jim's dad, and they like carry him, and there's like the slow motion, the swelling music. It's awesome.
Yeah, and then the scene just ends. Like, yeah, your dad. But it seems like it should be the end of the movie, but it's not.
No, it's really not, because after Jeff is murdered, aka Chuck Mays, Yoshido's like, all right, fuck this. I'm gonna get the ninjas and finally kill motherfucking Dragon Sound. So they ambush Jim, Michael Phelps, and YK Kim on their way to the airport. And then the final major action scenes happen in like a swamp. And what's interesting is I read another trivia fact that a lot of the budget of this movie was spent apparently clearing this area of crocodiles and alligators, even though this area didn't have crocodiles and alligators.
YK Kim was just really afraid of them.
He's like, yes, they are against the ethos of Taekwondo because they're sea creatures.
Dragon sound, not alligator sound.
I didn't even think about that. That's a good point. They're rival fucking reptilians.
Yeah. They cleared all the wildlife from this swamp that they didn't really need.
They're like just getting rid of all the mosquitoes and ants and
Yeah.
fucking horseflies.
YK Kim is like, no, my movie has to be perfect.
Yeah, it's a fucking great. So during this fight, Jim is critically injured, but once again, YK Kim and Michael Phelps are able to fend their own as much as they can, but Michael Phelps gets fucking like back cut with a fucking samurai sword. And then, we get the final fight scene between YK Kim and Yoshido. But
This is
fun
awesome.
fact, the actor who played Yoshido had already went back to South Korea by the time this movie got to this point. So they just got the guy who played fucking Chuck Mays to dress up as him. And you can tell because his mask comes down because he's wearing like a white ninja outfit. And it's very clear. You can see it from his eyebrows and his beard.
It is visibly not the same guy.
He's like a half foot shorter.
Yeah, he's shorter. The way he moves, his physical mannerisms are so different. You can see his beard under the mask at points.
Yeah, it is so fucking awesome. I love how just like, and to be fair, obviously, if you interact with a challenge, you just make what you can of it. And it works enough, but like they really should have just did like even 5 seconds of editing to edit out fucking Chuck May's face. Like seriously.
Well, yeah, like you said, a challenge comes up, it's independent filmmaking. Sometimes you just gotta work with it. And of course, there are filmmakers who do that. We've seen, we talk about Sam Raimi all the time. There are some pretty egregious body double switches in the Evil Dead film. But I think he's a little more clever with editing, whereas the directors of Miami Connection, they're working with what they got. Having said that, the actual fight scene itself, pretty fucking good for this film.
No, I totally agree. This last fight scene is great. And I think the reason that it's great, I mean, obviously outside of the fact that Yoshido was not there, so fucking Chuck Mays is in there. But it really is interesting because it is really not only obviously the ultimate battle, but it's also the culmination of everything in this movie that YK Kim has been demonstrating in the various scenes of obviously the, more action scenes in this movie, but also there's like scenes of him actually practicing like real life Taekwondo lessons on the actors who I believe in real life were mostly students of his.
Yeah,
which is why obviously they're
gym.
not great actors.
Yeah, I watched this with a friend last night, and we were kind of clowning on the action, and I said, I'm pretty sure all these guys are members of YK Kim's actual gym, though. And so, my friend was like, oh, okay, we got to cut him some slack then, because that's pretty cool, right?
No, it's cool. Like, and that's the thing, just like with, and obviously not just like, because, Tommy Wiseau really only helped Greg really during the production of The Room. But like YK Kim, he's helping out all of his friends essentially. Like, he's like, hey, you're a friend of mine or you're a classmate of mine. How about you be in my fucking movie?
No, YK Kim, like, obviously there's parallels. YK Kim is so much more based than Tommy.
I agree. Even though I think Tommy Wiseau is a far more fascinating figure, but YK Kim is definitely a better person. I think we can both agree on that.
But you're totally right. I hadn't thought about it. This fight is, this is Kim's kind of moment to show you everything that he's kind of been like showing off and kind of telling you, you kind of know that he's the leader of this gang. He's good at Taekwondo. But he actually, for being an auteur who I don't think he directed, but he wrote, he produced, he stars in, he conceived of this film, he actually doesn't really take up too much of the spotlight. He tends to give the younger guys more of the moments. But this scene is his moment. This is where we get to see YK Kim do his thing, which is Taekwondo. And the person that he's sparring with, it's highly choreographed and the choreography is very apparent, but it also seems pretty skilled. And it's a pretty exciting fight scene, truly.
Yeah, I couldn't fucking agree more. This is, in my opinion, I think the single best fight scene in the whole movie, along with the other one with the Chuck Mays character, even though, once again, that's the funny parallel, is that both the best, like, one-on-one fight scenes are with fucking Chuck Mays and fucking YK Kim. Well, it's awesome.
The earlier scene is very fun, and it's very, like everything in this film, it's crazy, and it's entertaining, and it kind of leaves you agog. But this scene is legitimately, I think, a solid B-movie martial arts fight scene. If all of the fight scenes in this film, which again are all entertaining, there is not a second in this film wasted. It's fucking great. But if every fight scene in this film was on the caliber of this scene, just in its overall presentation and its overall execution, we'd be saying, oh yeah, pretty good fight scenes in that movie. Kind of silly, but whatever.
Yeah, this movie might have been found out by fucking like Wu-Tang Clan way before like Alamo Drafthouse, if it was that like quality throughout.
I wonder if the RZA has seen this. He must have.
I would be shocked if he hadn't, to be honest with you.
He was just at the Hollywood Theater, and I thought about getting tickets, and I slept on it, and of course, and I knew they would. They sold out right away.
Oh yeah, of course. Like anything from a fucking Wu-Tang member at this point.
Yeah.
Even like fucking Redman would sell out at this fucking point.
And that's one of those things where like I really wanted to go. He was hosting the 36th Chamber, like the film. And
Mhm.
I don't know if you know, like this is a little bit of a tangent. RZA actually he knows a lot about martial arts films and a lot about Chinese history. So he was there to kind of talk about like the movie and the historical lore behind it. And I kind of had this thought. I was like, you know what? I'm not that big of a Wu-Tang fan. There is someone else who wants to see this more than I do. So
That's
I was like,
honestly a
well, I'll
beautiful
save it.
thought, man.
Well, because I knew it was going to sell out right away. And of course I wanted to go. Of course, I love martial arts movies and I love Wu-Tang's music, but I've had experiences where I missed seeing like an individual who was really special to me speak, and I wouldn't, God, that sounds so lame. I didn't
No.
feel right jumping on one of those tickets before someone that the RZA meant more to could do it. So I didn't do it.
No, exactly. Brian, I think the reason you went into that very earnest like point is because this is an extremely earnest movie once again. There's once again
Because
no sense of irony like cynicism and no sense of irony in this movie at
no,
all.
that's the thing. Like YK Kim, again, he didn't have to make this movie. He made a movie to like, okay, in his own way, he wanted to speak to what he imagined alienated youths in America to be.
No, absolutely, yeah. And then just real quick, so the very end scene, so Jim does survive, even though YK Kim fucking dragged him through like fucking like infected swamp waters to save his life, which is awesome because he's got a giant like stomach wound.
And you're just like, he would be so sick.
Yeah, I mean he would have died of sepsis way before he got to
Yeah,
the hospital.
he'd have like little alligator eggs in his tummy.
Yeah. It'd be like a body horror movie, but in real life, that'd be
God,
fucking.
imagine if this film took a turn and became like a Cronenberg body horror film about an
Well,
alligator, a man birthing an alligator towards the end.
Well, fun fact, Brian, the original ending of this movie was, even though, once again, fucking YK Kim wins at the very end, and they're all driving to the airport, but the end of the movie is them just, like, begging Jim to, like, hold on, but then he dies at the end of the movie. That was the original ending for this fucking movie. And then Jim's dad
Oh,
never gets to meet him.
no,
Which is
that
crazy
sucks.
because, like, well, that's fucking crazy to me because, like, nothing in this movie would have led up to that. It's like a
No,
total downer ending that makes no
it's a
sense.
feel-good movie that's supposed to inspire you.
It literally makes no sense why the movie
Someone had
originally
to,
ended like that.
someone pulled YK aside and said like, "Hey, maybe we should have a happy ending."
It's basically like the fuck you ending of like a lot of kids movies from when you were growing up, like once again, like Bridge to Terabithia, like that
Or
other like
like,
infamous example.
or like, you know about the original ending to Clerks?
Oh
Where
yeah, where
Dante
fucking
gets
he gets
shot
murdered.
point blank range at the very end, and it has nothing to do with it's nothing that was previously established in the story at all. It's just like a fucking bummer. This is like that, but worse because this is such a joyous film. It's so joyous, and I'm not just saying this like ironically because I think it's a funny movie, although it is funny. Like it's a silly movie, but like that would add nothing to the even if this was a very perfectly made movie with amazing all the way through action scenes and great performances and really dramatic, emotional arcs. A downer ending like that would not add anything to it because that's not the type of ending that this movie needs.
No, absolutely. So yeah, in the ending that we get to actually see in the movie, Jim makes it to the hospital, he survives, he gets to meet his dad, and they get to like walk off into the fucking like out of the hospital basically. And the ending line of the movie is, only through the elimination of violence can we achieve world peace. Incredible.
Amazing. Because, like, I guess the film is very positive, and our protagonists, they don't seem to, like, love violence or to wallow in it, but there's nothing in this film's story that indicates that violence is not the answer, right?
And that's the thing, though, is that, people have, like, made fun of, like, famously, the reason I first heard about this movie was that the fucking Red Letter Media guys reviewed this in one of their first episodes of Best of the Worst. And they kind of made fun of that line because it is a very funny line. But, like, I can't remember which movie we watched at the moment, but, like, the Dragonstown guys, they are only responding to violence with proportional violence. Like, they're never starting any conflict. Like, that's the thing. Like, they try to de-escalate basically the entire time.
And they just want to hang out and be bros and make their rock and roll music.
But these cocaine dealing bikers and ninjas, like, these guys are too fucking cool and happy with themselves. We need to take them down a peg. It's so 90s. It's 90s bullies.
It's also like part of the thing with the villains, the biker ninja cocaine dealers, is there's also sort of an underlying thing where it's also like they're jealous of Dragonsound, right? They're jealous of their music. They're jealous of their friendship. They're jealous of their wholesomeness. It's not just that they're cutting in on their coke dealing business. It's that they hate what Dragonsound stand for.
Yeah, they're like like, we're, only producing negativity in the world. We need to fucking make everything negative. That's literally what it's like. It's so good.
And you know what? You don't need that kind of energy. And Dragon Sound don't need that kind of energy. And that's what this movie is all about.
No, I 100% agree. And before we get to the Amazon reviews, I do have one more piece of trivia that I thought was really hilarious. So the scene where the fucking real life federal prosecutor and his gang like fight all those guys in like downtown Orlando. Apparently that part of Orlando was like kind of like dilapidated in like the 90s and early 2000s. So you know who like bought up all the businesses to turn it into like the entertainment district, Brian?
Who?
Lou Pearlman.
Really?
Yeah, Lou motherfucking Pearlman, aka the guy who started NSYNC and Backstreet Boys and molested several
Yeah.
of them.
The blimp salesman.
Yeah, that motherfucking guy. So I thought that was a little funny piece of trivia there.
A true demon, by the way. A true millennial boogeyman.
No, absolutely. And that's the thing, we've never really talked about it on the show, but like the boy band like craze in the late 90s, early 2000s, which of course is a key piece of millennial nostalgia along with like fucking new metal and stuff like that. But like it's funny that Backstreet Boys and NSYNC were the rivals when they were literally ran by the same person.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I think he also ran O-Town and another one of the lesser boy bands, I think. He was kind of being like the Putin of pop music.
He was the American Simon Cowell in that way.
Yes.
Simon Cowell's
yeah.
whole thing was like British boy bands, so.
Yeah. Eventually we'll have to talk more about the boy band thing. The reality, I think, Taylor, is that neither you or I wouldn't have been listening to that growing up. And I guess you're probably like me, where when I hear a boy band song now, I'm like, that's a pretty good pop song. And it just leaves.
Yeah, no, for me, it's just like, yeah, that was like honestly pretty solid given the time, and I just walk along.
Yeah, and whereas like like when we were 9 or whatever, like I was pretending to hate boy bands so hard.
They're wieners.
There is such, I don't even know what I would have said back then. Yeah, probably wieners.
Yeah. Well, speaking of wieners, Brian, I think that leads perfectly into our Amazon review section. Now, I only have 2 Amazon reviews because the Amazon reviews for this movie were pretty boring, but I do have 2, I think, pretty solid ones. One that I think is actually good and one that is pretty bad. So our first Amazon review here is from the ambulance driving right by my apartment. No, I'm just kidding, but it's very, very loud. But our first review here is from A. Briggs, who gives us 5 stars. And the head of the review says, only through the elimination of violence can we achieve world peace, which once again, that's Kino. Kino, once again, we need to be very clear. And the body of the review says, I am forever grateful to Alamo Drafthouse for finding this film and giving it its newfound life. For if they hadn't, I might have gone my whole life never knowing this treasure exists. Honestly, I don't even know where to begin with this. I won't go into the plot as I'm sure others have gone into it already. But I will echo the other 5-star rating sentiment that this movie is awesome. Oh sure, it is mostly definitely a so bad it's good flick. But what's not to love here? We have ruthless cocaine-dealing ninjas who ride around in broad daylight on motorcycles. Some actually catchy music, street fights involving taekwondo, and my personal favorite, memorably bad acting from all involved. I could go on and on here, but I'll keep this short. This is definitely a movie you want to watch with a group of friends, and it's a movie that needs to be seen. And you know what? I agree with basically that entire review. I don't think there's literally anything to really disagree with in that review, to be honest.
No, this movie is a treasure. Truly. First of all, it's fucking hilarious. That sounds reductive. And as I said before, I try to avoid like the so bad it's good thing because I don't think that's true of very many films, right? I actually think most films are good or bad, but there's a few movies. Of course, we said The Room, Troll 2, probably other examples, forgetting now, but this, where they are so thoroughly wrong and they're so lovingly crafted and so passionately made that you need to see it. It's like it came from another dimension.
Yes, and once again, I said very uncanny valley, come from another dimension. And we've expounded upon it a little bit with obviously the band Dragon Sound and, the characters. I'm calling them the Dragon Sound gang because that's what they are. But like the actual songs in this movie, the actual like songs in this movie are like fantastic 80s like, cheesy songs. They're really good.
They are legit. They are funny. They are like cheesy songs. Sure. Are they any cheesier than the original songs in Scarface?
No, not really. Like, Push It to the Limit is honestly just as cheesy as, like, fucking Friends or Against the Ninja.
Against the Ninja fucking rules. No, these are incredibly catchy. And that's one of the other things with this, is the music, much like these stunts, the Taekwondo stunts, is competently made. It is made by people who know what they're doing. It's just something about the whole movie, the way it comes together is unusual. But it's not like it was made by people with no talent. These are good songs. And I don't don't even know if you don't know what we mean by like pure 80s pop rock cheese, how can we explain this? It's kind of a genre that is a precursor to 2000s anime themes,
Yes, you
maybe?
know what this honestly kind of reminds me of like American City Pop to a certain extent.
Yeah,
Like I hear
okay,
like
yeah,
American City Pop in
yeah.
this.
Like if American City Pop as like a phrase was a thing, this is what it would sound like. It would be less kind of R&B jazz influenced and more like rocky, but it'd be like this.
Exactly, yeah. So, as we mentioned Friends and fucking Against the Ninja, and also the ending theme is great because it starts with "You search endlessly for your father," and I'm like, oh my God, can you get any more on the nose than that?
I mean,
I
like
mean, all the songs are,
Ninja,
but yeah.
Against the Ninja is literally like they talk about motorcycle ninjas that are stealing co or yeah, selling cocaine.
I mentioned it to you, but that song plays before they even meet the cocaine dealing bikers and ninjas. It's so
Yeah,
funny.
well, they wrote the song. They had their fingers on the pulse of the culture of Southern Florida to such a degree that they were picking up on the vibes before they actually were made manifest in their life.
Well, I also just realized that the fucking also the female member of this band in the love interest looks like Pat Benatar, so she's Pat Benatar. That's who
It's
this fucking character
big
is.
time Pat Benatar vibes. I wish girls wore their hair like that still. I think that's kind of a cool look. I'm not even joking.
I totally agree. But like I
The
just
the
realized that
big
she
curly side swoop. No,
yeah.
she is Pat Benatar, 100%.
But I also just realized that she's the one singing the song, so she's like giving the hint to everybody in the audience in the band, like, hey, there's these like cocaine dealing bikers and ninjas, but we're gonna like beat them up, right? And they're like, yeah, totally. And then
And they're
after the
just like,
song, they're like, wait, what the fuck did you just sing about?
yeah. But in the moment, they're like, yeah, that would be crazy if we had to fight cocaine ninjas.
And then 5 minutes later, they're fighting them. That's awesome.
And it's a grisly fight.
It is, yeah. Also, another trivia fact I just remembered, but the song Friends literally plays in the ending credits for the video game Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon.
Really?
Yes. Isn't that awesome? A
Why?
Far Cry 3
Just
game
'cause,
ends with
just
a
'cause the
song from
devs,
Miami Connection.
just like because the devs were fans of this movie.
Well, yes, but that game also is very like 80s, like, yeah, not city
Okay.
pop.
Is it kind of like, I
Vaporwave.
didn't
It's
know
very
that.
it's very vaporwave inspired.
Oh, okay, then that does totally make sense. I didn't know that about that game.
Yeah, so that's another little fun fact. And then I do have one more Amazon review, Brian, and oh boy, this person's real dumb. So NJL gives us 1 star, and the head of the review says, beware of overrated fanboy love. You'll sum IQ points watching this crap. And here's the thing, if you're gonna insult the people that watch this movie and call them dumb, at least write complete sentences, dipshit. And the body of the review says, yes, it's a bad film with bad acting. Dumb illogical plot, bad acting, even the martial arts fights are bad. Well, that's not really true. But anyway.
Yeah, they're really not. They're not like the best, but they're perfectly passable for like this level of film.
Exactly. Did any of these people ever hold before the camera starts to roll? They swing like it's a baseball bat or stick ball. And it's like, first off, what, motherfucker? What'd you just say?
I do understand what he's trying to say, but that's not the issue with this film.
No, absolutely. This movie makes Bill and Ted or Wayne's World band look like Grammy winners. And it's like, what?
Yeah, the band in Bill and Ted kicks ass, of course.
Seriously, it is bad unless you got friends to watch it with and make fun of it. I'm sorry, make fun off it.
Make fun of it. Like, okay, this is the thing that's frustrating when you talk about movies with
With
this
normies,
is a bad
basically.
movie. We all know that, right? Yeah, I was trying not to say it with normies. We all understand this is not fucking high cinema. But if the most you can say about this movie, which is kind of fascinating, which is crazy, which is so endearing and so bursting with life, I'm not being like ironic here. It is so full of life. If you watch this and you go, this is so bad, it's so stupid, I hate it, then it's like what do you watch? Because if that is your response to this film, your sincere emotional response to this film, then you better only be watching like Jean-Luc Godard and like Hong Kong action films and like Ingmar Bergman films. Because if you're like saying like Miami Connection is so bad, nobody can act, it's whatever, and you can't like appreciate how joyous it is, then I don't want to hear that you're watching like Marvel movies.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there's a reason why Miami Connection is like a pretty well-respected movie among like a lot of modern filmmakers. Like, genuinely speaking, speaking, this is a well-loved movie among like, yeah, auteur filmmakers to this fucking
It's
day.
it's a great fucking time. And again, we say this all the time. There is no middle class in Hollywood anymore. There aren't modestly budgeted, reasonably well distributed, not that this was well distributed because it wasn't, but there's no middle class of like films are either these huge licensed products that are part of a long franchise that can be played in China and make even more money than they make in America with minimal changes because they're all fucking written by a committee. Or they're like super like kind of niche, I guess, like art films. Or I guess your middle class nowadays would be A24, right? But even that, A24 is kind of pivoting to doing more like blockbuster fare. But this movie, like people made this movie because they loved it. There is like blood and sweat and tears in it. And guess what? They got nothing back for it, for their efforts, for decades. It took decades of waiting, and YK Kim probably nearly forgot about this film or like resigned himself to like, nobody's ever going to see it again when this was discovered. And it's hard to see movies that feel like they were made by real human beings now. It really is. It's a thing that we are losing as the industry becomes more codified. And let's face it, as AI takes over more. To see a movie like this that only one specific group of people could have ever made at one specific moment in time that is so memorable and is so full of life. If you watch that and you're just like, that's a stupid movie, that's bad, and you can't think of anything constructive about it to say, you're an idiot.
Yeah, you're an idiot who has really nothing worth to fucking say. And like, talk about once again the middle class of like fucking like filmmakers these days. You know who's a big fan of Miami Connection, Brian? Multiple Academy Award winner, including Best Picture winner Sean Baker, is a big fan of
What?
Miami Connection.
God bless. God bless. I mean, but how could you not be? Again, how could you watch this film and not just think it's like it's amazing. Just that it exists is kind of amazing.
Yeah, that it was able to exist in the fucking ether of like 80s like fucking cynicism and excess.
Speaking of Baker Taylor, I forget, did you see Honora?
I have not, but it's been on my bucket list for
Oh,
a while.
I loved
All
it.
right.
I loved it. I know it's old news now, but like I loved it. That is one of the strongest emotional reactions I've had to a new film in a long time. I saw it twice in theaters.
God, that's fucking beautiful. But speaking of once again strong reactions to beautiful films, I think that ends our review here. So do we have anything to add before we get to our pluggables, Brian?
I mean, I think we've said everything that we need to say. Even if you've already listened to this podcast, if you haven't seen Miami Connection, like hearing people talk about it does not do justice to it. There is no other film like this. And again, if you like these films that are just kind of these chaotic kind of mishmashes, if you like The Room, if you like Troll 2, there's very few movies like that are really in that level of being so perfectly wrong. But this is one of those movies. Not only is it one of those movies, but it is so fun. It is so sincere and so earnest and so lovingly made. And it has some pretty cool songs in it. Everyone should see Miami Connection. It's incredible.
No, I couldn't fucking agree more. Yeah, this is, once again, and probably easily my top 5 favorite, like, once again, so bad it's good movies. This is a movie I've seen, I would say, at least 10 times in my life, and I enjoy it just as much every time. The performances are cheesy, but they're fucking funny. The action scenes are, once again, quality, but they're obviously over-choreographed as shit. The songs are great. It's less than 90 fucking minutes long, and yeah, you're right, Brian, there's really no real wasted time in this movie, like, really at all. Like, there's no scenes of people just, like, sitting around not doing anything and, like, fucking like pondering the like existence of the world. Like if they're pondering philosophy, they're fucking doing something at the same goddamn motherfucking time.
This movie is about people who are living life to its fullest. They are in a rock and roll band. They are going to school. They are doing taekwondo and all of the meditation that comes along with it. That's how this movie feels. You are living a full life when you watch Miami Connection.
Exactly. This is a very Henry Rollins friendly movie. You just grab life by the balls, motherfucker, and that's what these guys are doing.
Dragon Sound probably were playing some gigs on some of the same bills as Black Flag.
Yeah. Could you imagine like Dragon Sound like fucking like going right after Henry Rollins and he's just dripping in sweat and he's like got those stinky ass shorts on
during like the My War tour when they're playing like the Sabbath sludge music and it's like, all right, next up is Dragon Sound. If any of you talk to me, I'm gonna stab you.
You just have the gym guy going like, oh my god, that guy's crazy.
Oh my god, it's Henry Rollins.
He's doing the like soy boy,
He really is soying hard when he does that. It's almost like a joke of someone doing the modern soy voice.
Yeah. Oh God, but speaking of soy boys talking about culture, I think that ends our review here. So let's get into our pluggables. So you can follow me at Carlos Chantor on Twitter.com. And as well, please subscribe and follow us on both of our YouTube and Spotify pages where we are uploading every episode simultaneously to both platforms. And as well as always, please donate to the Lucifer and the Father campaign. Once again, Scott, Sean, and Robert are creating a fantastic series. They need more moral and financial support to get their series off the ground. And of course, as we've been saying for like the last month and a half, 2 months or so, they're in pre-production for future episodes of Lucifer and the Father, so they are making the series. But once again, they need more moral and financial support to continue on that production. So please help Scott, Sean, and Robert's dream to become a reality. And as we've always been saying too, is that if you donate to the campaign, just send us an email, send us a YouTube comment telling us and, showing us that you donated, and we will within reason match those donations about 25 bucks each, because we really genuinely do believe in Scott, Sean, and Robert's creations, and we believe in their dreams. And, they've been great friends to us. They've been very supportive to us. And I think that's just the least we can do for them. Right, Brian?
Of course. And go watch the Lucifer and the Father pilot, because that'll give you an idea, too, of like how ambitious this series they're trying to make. Well, they are making. It is going to happen now. But it is sort of an anthology series. As I understand it, every episode is going to take place kind of in a different period and tell a different like biblical or spiritual story. So it's a pretty lofty concept. So they're working really hard to make it the best they possibly can. I did just reach out to Scott earlier today just to see if there were any updates. So I'm sure he'll get back to me soon. But yeah, as of the last we've heard, even just a couple weeks ago, the series is still underway. It is happening. They have made enough money, but again, for a series this big, they can always use some more. So like Taylor said, donate whatever you can. Show us that you donated because you listened to the show, and we're going to match whatever. We will always do that for Scott and Sean indefinitely until they get really famous and people are donating crazy amounts of money to them. And then we're going to have to stop.
Exactly. And, once again, talking about small creators doing things in a, big business world, we've of course been plugging this one, but the now official Luigi Mangione Defense Fund, once again, we talked about on many episodes now, but, Luigi's getting fucked over. There's a lot of judicial misconduct going on. And the most recent update I learned today is that allegedly prosecutors are saying they have the smoking gun, basically, of his confessions in his notebook, which are all bullshit. It's not real. If it was real, they would have said it months prior.
Exactly.
All BS horseshit. No, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised even if they did have quote unquote something that explained his feelings about the healthcare system. They probably got it without Mirandizing him first, so it's not even valid to bring up anyways.
They have shit. They've had shit on them this whole time. They know it. You know it. Going forward, of course, with the specifics of what's happening to Luigi, but also the specifics of what's happening to the country and the world, his trial is going to be kind of a benchmark for where we're headed. They want to see what kind of solidarity, whether it's financial or ideological or just, kind of spiritual and moral support. They want to test how much solidarity from normal people like us they can push back against. That's why it's so important for them to fuck Luigi over.
Exactly. And, they lost the fight fairly recently with Kilmar because he's now back in the U.S. and he's going to actually face charges, which, even if he's not guilty or guilty of those fucking charges, but he deserved fucking due process in the goddamn first place. That's a bare fucking minimum. But they lost that fight. So now they're going to probably push the Luigi thing even harder. Like, let's be real here. Because they're starting to lose some of these fights that the Trump administration has been trying to push for a while. So we can't let them lose Luigi either. We just can't. Or we can't let them win Luigi, I should say.
Yeah, and they want it bad.
No, they do. And, we always say, too, we both donated to the campaign. But if you want to donate to the campaign, just send us an email, send us a YouTube comment, once again, showing that you did. And we will match those donations as well, 25 bucks, because we believe in Luigi. We think he's cool. We think he's based. We think he's hot. But most importantly, we think he's innocent beyond a reasonable doubt. Not even not guilty. Just absolutely straight up innocent. Not guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. All the things you could possibly have. Like, as we've said earlier on other episodes, like, if this was any other, like, less high profile trial, this would have just gotten thrown out a long time ago.
Because guess what? The fucking cops and the feds, they fucked it up from the start.
Exactly.
Because they had no case, and they know it.
Yeah, they're just pinning it on this fucking guy who honestly was probably just a fucking guy they found in a McDonald's and they just strung him up. That's honestly probably what they're doing.
Yeah, they saw some backpacker and they were like, call it off. We got him.
Yeah, because they couldn't find the actual guy who did it, which is my theory, to be honest with you. They were embarrassed they couldn't find the actual guy, so they just strung up this fucking innocent guy.
So like I'm so sick of people, like, and it is a lot of, not a lot, but a couple of people who I mostly think are good people, like kind of liberal boomers who say like, people who are freaked out by violence, which is understandable, who will say like, well, they found his notebooks. Like, is that cause to arrest someone? Is that cause to execute someone that they have like an angsty notebook? Like, how many people that then would be on trial or on death row if that was in itself evidence in a court of law to have just a pissy notebook?
Every 13-year-old edgy emo kid we knew growing up would be fucking on death row right now if that was the case.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Exactly.
So yeah, we believe in Luigi. And, once again, as I mentioned, small time creators in a big creator world. Of course, we're that too. And we have a Patreon page. So please, donate to our Patreon page, subscribe to our tiers. And, we have, I would say, our best tier, which is our $5 tier, which is you get every episode 48 hours early. Because as I always say, the first 48 hours are the most important. You get to hear our thoughts first before everybody else. You get to formulate all of the opinions you could possibly have about the things that we're fucking talking about well before everybody else, and you're going to be ahead of the motherfucking curve.
All of your friends are going to think you're a genius until they also listen to the episode 48 hours later and they go, hey, what the fuck?
So yeah, please subscribe to our Patreon. And then as well, Brian, I've totally been skipping your pluggables for the last few weeks, so I do apologize. Do you have any pluggables, Brian, for us?
Please follow the Facebook page, Millennials Are Old, and follow us on Threads and Instagram, Millennials Are Old Pod. Threads, Instagram is if you want to reach out to me because you want to harass us about the show, you want to suggest something, you have any feedback, you hate us, you love us, don't get weird, but we are very accessible on Millennials Are Old Pod on Threads and Instagram. So that is the best way to reach out to us. We really want to get feedback. We want to get suggestions. We want you to, recommend things for us to review. If you said something that you thought sucked or was obnoxious, like I'm also curious to hear that. So those are your places to reach out for us. But other than that, I got nothing. I'm off Twitter now, so don't have a Twitter anymore.
I only follow it for e-girls at this point. That's literally it. And I'm probably not even going to follow it for that much longer either.
Which is all it is now, is porn bots.
Yeah, really. But speaking of people who are real-life porn bots, I think that ends our review for this week. And Brian, I think you and I can both agree that I have a connection to this film. A Milwaukee connection, not a Miami connection. I've actually never been to
Milwaukee connection.
I've never actually been to Miami, and I have no interest in going to Miami. But I do have an interest in having a connection with the people around me, just the beautiful people around me. That has nothing to do with cocaine, to be very clear, but it has to do with Taekwondo, friendship, and rock and roll, as we mentioned at the beginning of the episode. Would you agree with that, Brian?
I would. And, in these trying times, you need to reach out. You need to be part of a community. You need to maybe join a Taekwondo gym. You need to maybe go to community college. You maybe need to start a rock and roll band that plays the local club scene with the other members of your Taekwondo gym. Because that is what solidarity is all about.
Absolutely. So have a good night, everybody. Sleep tight and let YK Kim beat your ass if you're a cocaine dealing biker and ninja. So have a good night, everybody.